Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the live stream for patch 3.1. Hi. We've already watched the live stream. It was about 2 hours ago, but I decided to do a little bit of a recap of it because I feel like I didn't provide all the insight I wanted to provide when I did it live. So I figured I'd just do it again, but with the stuff I wanted to add. As usual, we're gonna have Mr. Socks in the bottom left corner. But yeah, so let's get right into it.
I had the same question every time I walked this way when I was a kid. Why is this high wall here? And can a wall really block sandstorms? It was only after I grew up that I realized it serves a more important purpose, keeping out people like us.
We've waited a long time for this day to come. Fate has finally dealt me a hand to play against the Academia.
Okay, who was the first person who spoke, actually? Is it Deya?
Do you think the resurrection of the Scarlet
All my homies hate the Academia, actually.
King
I think it is a little bit too loud. I'll turn it down.
can truly change Sumeru for the better?
The resurrection of the Scarlet King will only result in...
Okay, so the King Destroy. So we have a name for him now. I'm sure there's a lot of lore that a lot of things that lore people will have realized about this. I'm not the person to ask for this. That is definitely a new enemy.
Resurrection of the Scarlet King will...
Yeah, she's using Veritas Hunt. True. Okay, so new enemy using an arrow like a fucking sword for some reason.
A shield.
Weird.
That's why I must also wield a spear.
Okay, so first thing, another thing you might notice is her weapon. This is Cyno's signature weapon. It is not going to be good on her. It's really weird that they used it here, but it is what it is. I'm not going to be doing a pre-release for Kandaka because, well, the TLDR is I don't think she's really good enough to justify it. She's so straightforward, pretty simple, and she's arriving at the same time as 5 stars that I am actually excited for. We can talk about it more once we get to the actual showcase of it, but she's not looking too good.
Try something foolish, and even Candace won't be able to protect you.
Okay. That enemy looks fucking sick, right? This is probably another one of the Eremites. Right now we have an Electro Eremite. I think they call it the Sunfrost. We have a Cryo Eremite. No, I think the Cryo is Sunfrost, and the Electro is something else. So we have the Cryo one, that's Sunfrost. We have the Electro one, that's Day Thunder. And we have the Hydro one, which is the Desert Clearwater. It's looking like we're getting Animo and Geo. So the Animo one is going to be like the bow woman. And we're also getting a Geo guy. Looks like he can summon a crocodile. That's actually really sick. This is probably one of Cyno's idol animations. It looks really cool.
Through me, justice is served.
If we're unhappy,
5, I think.
we should speak up and let our voices be heard. Positions. Yeah. Ha! All eyes on me.
Life for the desert dwellers has been brutal ever since the Scarlet King's death all those years ago. Feelings of desperation are widespread.
Traitors are what us followers of the Scarlet King despise the most.
One of us could be secretly revealing our whereabouts to the Academia.
Okay, so this is one of the new bosses we're getting, and this is the other one of the new bosses we're getting. They both look really cool. This is basically just the enemies we have right now, but on steroids. I'm excited to see how it's gonna go. What's this dude,
Answer me
actually?
this. If the sage...
Is this just a random NPC, or is this an important character?
Answer me this. Did the sages share any information about their project with you?
We're
Yeah,
cheap.
we're getting Cyno versus Alhaitham? I wonder what Cyno's
Did the sages
affiliation
share...
is. So is he, like, closely affiliated with the Academia? In the sense that, like, we're gonna have to fuck him up?
About their project with you?
We're cheap labor.
Oh, okay.
Did the
Okay.
sages share any information
Another
about
interesting thing is,
their project with you?
the weapon that Alhaitham is using here right? This, I believe, is the new sword we're getting, which is called the Zythos Moonlight. Now, it's hard to read too much into it because, well, they often put shit weapons on characters, right? Like, I remember fucking Dragon's Bane on Yunzin on her reveal. So, like, yeah. But it is possible that they're putting it on him because it's supposed to be a weapon he uses, which would indicate Alhaitham having a more supportive role because it's a support weapon. But hard to say because it's also just thematically and, like, visually a weapon that fits him. So it's probably not an indicator of anything, but it's still interesting.
We're cheap labor. Like livestock, but easier to control. Nothing more.
My experiment
So this
is
is
a
probably
success.
this is the Torre.
And now it seems they can no longer hold back their sheer adrenaline.
And he's just standing in the middle between Mike Wazowski and the T-pose. He's just like...
Oration.
Catherine just dies. So the question here is, are they killing Catherine? Or is this meant to be Nahida still possessing Catherine's body? Because if you've done the Archon Quest Act 2, after we wake up from the like dream thing, we can actually interact with Nahida because she's possessing the like robot body that Catherine... That's Nahida's voice, is it? Interesting. Voice is too high for Catherine? Maybe, actually. So then, what would killing, quote-unquote, killing the fucking robot Catherine actually do to Nahida? Like, would it do anything? I don't know. That's a very good question. She's probably not gonna die, but it's probably gonna have an impact. You might even say it's gonna have a Genshin impact. But yeah, so very interesting. Because Catherine is a robotic / cyborg-ish puppet of the Adventurers Guild, which as far as we understand is a Shenanigans organization, which means that it would be really weird for Dottore to kill off Catherine unless he's trying to get to Nahida in some way. So it's probably just indicating a plan that Dottore has to get Nahida out of her, like, hiding spot or something. And now...
No need to fear. The pain will be brief.
I don't know if this is like a giant... Are these feet or hands? They kind of look like feet, actually. Okay, no, they're definitely arms. But what if there were feet? They also kind of look like feet. Like... What if this was just like a... like a... Like, look at this. Look at this and tell me that's not like a boot that a knight is using. Like, just imagine this fucking thing waddling around. Oh. Anyways, we know that Scaramouche is a puppet, so it is possible to some extent that his like consciousness isn't necessarily stuck to his own body. So I'm wondering, is this like basically right? You can see him like in the middle of the mask, right? But is this real size Scaramouche with a massive giant fucking robot, or is this a like human sized robot with like a Scaramouche interface on the visor? Or is there supposed to be a little Scaramouche inside the Scaramouche we've met in the story? Just like Ratatouille? Anyways, that's enough speaking out of my ass about this. Let's move on.
Fear? The pain will be brief. Your era is coming to an end.
Come. He still has his dumb, stupid hat. Cool.
I am Mika, surveyor of the Reconnaissance Company. I will now be reading Grandmaster Varka's letter aloud for you all.
Does this mean the Grandmaster knew Razor's parents?
This is like side quest.
Fill up the barrels and store them away.
Stuff.
Then wait for a windier day. Wax the bottles, seal them tight.
Whose voice is this, by the way? Venti? Okay.
For the south wind that soothes, for the north wind that bites.
Dear friends, Let us now open the wines.
And who's that? Is that Jean?
To the Animal Archon!
This is definitely new. Okay, so you kill small boars and then you fight the big one. Okay. Hyakune Nikki returns. You get trial characters. You get basically. It looks like it's just the exact same thing. Doesn't even look like there's new enemies actually. Okay, that's kind of cringe. Okay, new weapons. Staff of Scarlet Sands, Key of these nuts. I don't know how to pronounce that. Zyphos' Moonlight, Makhaira Aquamarine, Wandering Evenstorm, Missive Windspear. I don't remember what this one does. I'll have to look it up again. Gives attack per EM, I see. I don't have much to say about like the new environment stuff. It's just we got Ruin Guard hidden in the desert. Wow, very cool. We've got an oasis. Wow. There's not much to say about that. It's kind of just, yeah, experience it yourself kind of thing. So we're gonna kind of skip over. Okay, seems to be some new like fun-ish puzzles. I'm looking forward to that. Okay, so we're starting to get into the actual interesting stuff. This is definitely a new enemy. So we're getting kind of like a Dorito, but blue. Blue Eyes White Dorito. Wait, that's what it's gonna be called. That is most definitely what I'm calling it. This is a Blue Eyes White Dorito. That's a very complicated name. Asimon, algorithm of semi-intransient matrix of overseer network. ASIMON. His attacks look really cool. I just wonder how his hitbox is. I just really hope that when he does that attack, you can still attack him, and that his hitbox isn't. Oh, it doesn't look like it. Oh no. Oh no. And then he goes invisible. Oh. Damn it, man. Alright, new creatures. Very cool. Okay, so it says they've taken in researchers who've been exiled by the academia. Now, that's very interesting. If I remember correctly, Dottore was exiled from the academia because of his fucking robot kink or something. So he might have spent some time in Aru Village. So we might learn more about him by talking to Kandaka. Okay, so we're getting an actual showcase of their abilities now. Normal attacks, just shitty normal attacks, whatever. Her E is like Yunjin's E in the sense that, I mean, it's like Beto's E, but if you hold it for long enough, you get the parry. You don't need to perfect parry something. Like, you don't need to get attacked. Her burst, as you can see, infuses her normal attacks with Hydro, but also infuses the rest of her party's normal attacks with Hydro, which is pretty significant. Now, the main question is, who cares about that? Who wants a Hydro infusion? And there are actually a few characters that can make use of it. The reality, though, is that it won't matter. They look at characters that could use a Hydro infusion because they want to be able to apply Hydro to vape their stuff, like Xiangling. And then you remember, oh, I still have to put this Hydro unit on my team to get this Hydro infusion. So now I'm using Kandaka that doesn't do any fucking damage instead of Xingqiu that does almost half my team's damage. Oh yeah, this is a very bad idea. Oh, okay, yeah, I see. That sucks, actually. In order for the Hydro infusion to actually be significant, it has to be on a character that wants their normal attacks to do Hydro. And not on a character that wants to have Hydro on the enemy, but that wants to be hitting enemies with Hydro. And that's just not the case with Xiangling. So the possibilities are basically a Hydro character that doesn't usually have Hydro damage on their normal attacks, but that has Hydro damage on the rest of their kit. So for example, someone like Xingqiu, right? You could Hydro infuse Xingqiu. Another example is a non-Hydro character that you generally would play in like Hydro teams as a driver because they just have good normal attacks and they can do a lot of their effects without needing to build their elements damage. So there's basically only one real example of that, and that is Zhongli. So Zhongli's normal attacks are actually relatively okay, and his skill and burst don't do that much damage, and so it is actually possible to build Hydro Zhongli. And there is already an incentive to play Zhongli in Hydro teams because he can carry Archaic Petra for 35% Hydro damage, and he can shred Hydro resistance. Now the problem is, well sure, your Hydro Zhongli is now going to be doing an okay-ish amount of damage, but keep in mind, let's say his damage gets increased by like 40% by being able to Hydro infuse. Kandaka's not doing any damage herself. So you're spending 2 slots for 1.4 times Zhongli's damage usually, which isn't even that good to begin with. It's not really worth it. It is something you can do if you want to play an on-field Zhongli team, but I don't expect it to ever really be worth it. It's possible we get units designed around it in the future, but yeah. The main like real potential use I can see for her is characters that want to be the one to trigger hydro reactions, but that are not hydro characters. So the only real example of that is for bloom things. So when you apply hydro on dendro, you don't actually consume as much aura as when you apply dendro on hydro, which means that realistically, if you want to generate as many seeds as possible, you want to maintain a dendro aura and be applying hydro onto the enemies. Now what that obviously means is that your dendro characters cannot be triggers for bloom unless you use someone like Kandaka that could hydro infuse your dendro characters, and then those hydro characters could then be swapped into, use 4 normal attacks or 1 normal attack into a charge attack, get 2 bloom seeds because of that, and then swap out to a different character that can also use that infusion and do the same thing. So an interesting mechanic about infusions is that infusions are basically just character things, right? I use Shungen, I think. So when you have an elemental infusion on normal attacks, it's not the infusion itself that has an internal cooldown, it's your character's normal attacks. But that means that when you swap to a different character, they don't have the same internal cooldown, so you effectively end up resetting your internal cooldown. So what you can do is you can do certain combos that apply a lot of element relatively quickly in a row. So for example, usually if I'm on Zhongli, right, and I do 1 normal attack, it triggers a melt. And if I do 1 normal attack into a charge attack, it triggers 2. But if I do that multiple times in a row, 1, 2, oh, we didn't get it this time, and we didn't get it. So what ends up happening is you get a melt on your first normal attack, on your charge attack, and then you miss melts on your other normal attacks. That's 2 melts. Oh, we didn't get 1 here, and we didn't get 1 here. I don't know if that was a good way to show it, but basically what ends up happening is you don't get as many melts. However, what you can do is you can end up swapping between 2 different units that both have this thing. Whatever. Good enough, I guess. But yeah, basically what you can do is you can swap between different characters in order to maximize the amount of times that you proc Bloom. And in the case of Bloom, unlike Meld, what decides Bloom damage is just your stats. It's not like the scalings on your talents, which means that even if you're using like Dendro main characters' normal attacks, like the Blooms are still doing the same damage, right? So there could be some utility in pure Bloom teams or Fridge teams for Kandaka. Now the problem with that is we don't have good Bloom and Fridge teams right now. And if you look at Nilou, which we're going to be talking about soon because she's coming up next, or after, in Nilou's teams, you're going to need to have a healer because you're triggering Bloom, and we still don't have a Dendro healer. And in order to keep your Hydro being the one to trigger the reactions, which is what you want, like I said, Hydro and Dendro takes away less aura so you can trigger more Bloom. You can't have 3 Hydro units. So you need to have Nilou, and you need to have a healer that has to be a Hydro unit. So you can't slot in a 3rd Hydro unit if you want to just maximize the Bloom damage. And if you're not going to maximize Bloom damage, then you should be playing a unit that deals damage themselves instead of a unit like Kandaka that just helps with your application. But yeah, so I'm not expecting very much out of her yet. I think there's some potential for her to be decent with more Bloom support in the future, but I'm not holding out much hope, and I don't think you should either. But yeah, that's kind of why I'm not going to do a pre-release, because I just don't think there's anywhere where she's actually going to be good. Yeah, also she gives a little bit of damage bonus to characters who attack while her burst is active, but it's a very small amount. It is not good enough to justify it. So it's basically 35 to 40% damage bonus, which is nice, but it's not enough to put a character on a team. Like, this is not enough. This is not that much. Basically, her numbers are just too undertuned. That's kind of just her only, like, issue. But yeah, let's keep going. Okay, now Cyno. I'm going to be publishing a pre-release video for Cyno. Hopefully the day after this video comes out. It's going to be in 2 parts. But let's very quickly talk about like what we're given here. Normal attacks, cool. Okay, so he's got his burst. Now, when he's inside of his burst, his normal charge and plunge attacks do electro damage. And okay, well, this is really funny actually. So this is his normal attack speed, right? And you can see that it's like really fast. But then here, As you can see from the cryo symbols here, he's fighting an Eremite Sunfrost, which deals cryo damage. He has cryo on himself, and when you have cryo on yourself, you actually have slower attacks. So I think they intentionally made him fight a cryo enemy so they could showcase the animations in like slow motion, which is really funny. Okay, he has an eye, and when he has his eye, if he uses E, it does more damage. He's got the same passive as Yelan, but with Sumeru. But yeah, most of this stuff is going to be covered in the pre-release that I've already recorded, and that should be released tomorrow. Okay, next up is Nilou, and I'm going to talk about why I really don't like her. So first off is like the normal, usual stuff that doesn't have an issue with it. She's got her normal attacks, elemental skill, right? Her elemental skill makes her attack 3 times. And then she can either have an Hydro Infusion, if you, I think, press normal attack, or she can have a kind of like a Barbara thing that doesn't heal you, like a AoE Hydro thing around her that doesn't deal damage, if she presses kill instead. I will be making a Nilou pre-release, but I'm gonna be waiting until we get leaks on Nahida, because the actual like relevant thing here is her passive. Her burst is basically just AoE Hydro that deals damage twice. It doesn't really matter. So if there's at least one Dendro character and one Hydro character in your party, and if the entire party is comprised of Dendro or Hydro characters. So if and only if your party has Hydro and Dendro characters and no other elements, after doing her E, is gonna make the blooms that you generate explode basically instantly. But yeah, it's gonna make the blooms explode very quickly. Right? So, see the blooms, you generate it, it explodes. Generates, explode. Generates, explode. It makes them explode very quickly, basically. But this is a passive that only works if you have only Hydro and Dendro characters, which means you can't go for a cryo unit to freeze enemies, and you can't go, and that's the important one, for an animal unit to group enemies. It also means that you can't go for electro units to do some of the Hyper Bloom mechanics, or some of the Electro Charge and Quicken interaction that you can use to generate more seeds even without actually triggering Hyper Bloom. Basically, this fucking sucks, and I hate it. That's the basic fucking, that's the TLDR of it. It sucks, and I hate it, and I'm really unhappy with what they did. I think it's a really fucking shitty way to design a unit. They basically just said, yeah, no, you can't play her with most of the characters you have. But then not only that, but you don't have a lot of good Dendro characters right now, so if you really want to make her work, you're gonna need to go for all of the fucking future Dendro characters we give you. Basically, it's sad. It's really sad. Making Bloom-focused teams, but preventing your team to use any of the elemental interactions that Hydro and Dendro have with other elements is just such a fucking lazy way to design a Bloom unit. I get it, right? They wanted to just force you to do Bloom and Bloom only, and that's fine. But I wish they did something like, something a lot like Goro's passive, in my opinion, would have been better. So you know how Goro's passive gets better the more Geo characters in your party you have? What I wish that it did is that, so right now her passives, right now her passives, she has one that basically makes them explode almost instantly, and one that makes them do more damage. I wish that this passive was always active no matter what, which it is not right now because it only does increase damage of Bountiful cores, not of Dendro cores. And Bountiful cores are only gonna happen if you have the other passive activated. So this doesn't work if you don't have the other passive. So what I wish they did instead is they made this passive work no matter what. And then based on the amount of Dendro or Hydro characters in your party, it makes your seeds explode faster. So right now what they did is they made it go from 6 seconds that it takes to explode to about 0.6. What I wish is that it was 6 seconds if Nilou was the only Hydro or Dendro in your party, but then for every Hydro or Dendro in your party, in addition to her, it goes down by 30% additively. So with one other character, they'd be about 4 seconds. With 2 other characters, so 3 characters that are Hydro or Dendro, it would be about 2.5. And with all characters, it would be the exact same thing as it is right now. Where it's like 2.5 is still quite a long time. It's 4 times bigger than 0.6, right? So there is still a downside here with Bloom, that it takes a while to explode. But you can work around that downside by putting Animo or Cryo units to either freeze enemies or group enemies. Effectively, I feel like this would have been less lazy design. They could have tweaked the numbers, maybe instead of 30 on each, they could have done 10, 20, 90. Just have her still function. At the very fucking least, have this passive still function outside of only Hydro and Dendro. That would have been a good way to design her, a less lazy way to design her. And I get it, right? The reason why they didn't do it is because it's easier to balance when you only have 2 elements to play around with. But as a player, it just feels really shitty, especially considering that we don't have a Dendro healer. The only Hydro healers we have are Barbara, that just fucking sucks, and Kokomi, that's a 5-star. Realistically, you're probably gonna... I mean, Kole kind of sucks, so you want to get another Dendro unit. We don't have one that would be good in Bloom teams right now, so you're probably gonna need to go for Nahida as well. And so basically, you're kind of just fucked with Nilou. You just don't have a good way to make her work without like actually getting multiple 5-stars, which is sad to me. I also don't think the payoff is high enough to justify all the requirements. When it comes to how good she is, I mean, I'll talk about it more once I do the pre-release. She should be pretty decent. Nothing crazy, but nothing terrible, and probably really easy to play in her like baseline teams. But putting aside power level, I think the design is just really bad. Okay, wishes. We still don't have the full banners, but Cyno, Venti, Kandaka on the first banner. Venti's had a bit of a resurgence in terms of how good he is with this Abyss. I think it's important to keep in mind, though, that Venti, at the end of the day, is a situational unit. I'll be doing an Ask Zajef on Venti, so you can look forward to that. But just do keep in mind, because I'm sure that you've heard from people that have Venti that, oh my, this Abyss feels so nice with Venti. Because it does. Venti against the fucking Mirror Maiden chamber and against the Geovishap chamber, and like the Shroom chamber, Venti really does feel nice. But do keep in mind that Venti is a situational unit, and sometimes he's gonna feel good and sometimes he's gonna feel bad. Don't let the most recent Abyss paint your biases too much. And then Nilou and Albedo. What the fuck is this? Okay, Copium, they're rerunning Albedo, and in this rerun, they're gonna say that he's gonna be added to the standard banner afterwards. Agreed? True. Albedo's a pretty straightforward unit. He's not a unit you want to have on your account. He's very much a flex state unit where you can kind of just slap him anywhere and he's gonna work. But he's never really great other than in Ito teams and I guess Noel teams. But just do keep in mind that like there's not that many people that play those teams. So if that's not you, Albedo is not a great pull. Meta-wise. If you like him, knock yourself out though. And then for Nilou, you can look forward to the pre-release. I mean, for Albedo, I'll also be doing an Ask Zajef, so you can prepare your questions for that. Okay, new weapons. Key of these nuts and Staff of the Scarlet Sands. This weapon is weird. It's both really bad and really good. What it does is it's HP % weapon, low base attack, HP % weapon, and it increases EM of all of your party members based on your max HP, which is Nilou's signature, obviously, because she's an HP scaler that focuses on bloom damage. It can also just be a decent EM buff, kind of like you'd use Elegy or Instructor. It's an okay-ish kind of weapon, but it's not great. It's kind of meh. It's outside of Nilou. For Nilou, it's quite a good one, but we'll get to Nilou once we get to the pre-release. Staff of the Scarlet Sands is a crit rate substat that gives you attack based on how much EM you have. It's a pretty good weapon on Cyno. It's a pretty good weapon on Xiangling. It's okay overall. Now, they ended up nerfing Zyphos a little bit. It's still gonna be quite good, but not quite as good as it otherwise would have been. But like I said, if you're not planning on going for the 5-star weapons, do not pull on the weapon banner. Ever. It's not fucking worth it. The other ones are mostly irrelevant as far as I understand. Okay, new boss, Aeon Blight Drake. This boss looks pretty fun. Like, look at this shit. You can't tell me that doesn't look so sick. I wonder if you can stagger him out of it. If this video ends up coming out before the codes expire, they'll be in the description. If it ends up coming out after the codes expire, sucks to be you. Okay, we got a new event that gives you a new free-to-play spear. It's not terrible. It's not great either. We have a lot of really good spears, and specifically for Cyno, because it's a weapon that's going to be coming out at the same time as Cyno, there's actually a better free-to-play option, which I talk about in my Cyno pre-release, so go check that out. You fight some opponents. Doesn't look like it's anything crazy. Hopefully we get some tanky enemies that respawn. That'd be fun. We get another, like, Mario Maker kind of event, but we can't Mario make. I don't know. I hope you have a lot of levels and that they're not too easy, but they are going to be too easy. And there won't be a lot of levels. Okay, Hyakuniniki is coming back. Right, that's the event where you have two character teams, and then you can swap out between two character teams, and you usually have a lot of power units that you can use. I think Hyakuniniki is one of the best events in the game. I'm really glad it's there. It's a really good event to like try out new team combinations and try out new units that you don't have, and it's just pretty fun overall. I'm really glad it's coming back. It's one of my favorite events. Also, his cam is blocking it. This is 10 wishes, basically. This is like a login event, normal login event. Then 1600 Primo Gems, which is 10 wishes worth. 4 Fragile Resins, Cloud Retainer, Damasked, I don't know, Device, Jumpty Dumpty Party Popper. So we're getting a pet, basically. Some Primo Gems, some Resin, which are basically the same thing as last year's anniversary rewards. Instead of a glider, it's a pet. Hopefully the pet isn't boring. Probably will be. Doesn't matter that much. Anniversary reward thing is just, I don't care, man. Personally, I don't care. I do think it's really fucking funny that people like leave 1-star reviews on Google Classroom. Like, I don't think there's anything funnier than that. I know people are like, wow, the Genshin community is so toxic for doing that. But like, let's be fucking real. It's really funny. Like, sure, it's toxic, but it's also really funny. Like, the fact that they doing it on like Honkai because you hate Hoyoverse is toxic and not funny. In the sense that like, yeah, you're kind of just taking out your anger and whatever, right? But doing it on Google Classroom to me is just so hilarious that it goes beyond toxic. It's like, how dumb are you that you leave a fucking 1-star review on Google Classroom? It's funny. It's too funny to me, and I don't know. Then there's the event that they talked about at the beginning with a little bit of combat stuff. Hyakuniniki, Mario Maker-ish, but you can't make. Mario-er. And then whatever the fuck this, it just looks like you just go places for this. Okay, new permanent gameplay, Genius Invocation TCG. It's not yet, right? It's not gonna be out in 3.1 as far as we understand. I think we've had leaks of it coming out in 3.3. Getting a lot more information on it in 3.2 and it coming out in 3.3. It's a mostly PvE game mode with some PvP features. Doesn't seem like there's gonna be any ranked features, so it's just gonna be friendly duels. It looks like a pretty straightforward card game stuff. Looks like you have basically a normal ability that you can use, and then a special ability that you can use. You can only use your special ability after gaining enough energy to use it. Characters have attack and health. Looks pretty much like standard card game stuff. Hopefully it'll be fun. I fucking hope so. And yeah, the characters did get elemental auras, which means that you should be able to trigger reactions as well, which is fun. That's good. Because if it's good content, like if it's actually fun, if it's an actual good card game, people can actually make tournaments and shit like that with the card game, which would be fun. I think that would be really cool. Okay, music. I think that the music in Genshin hits so much harder when you hear it for the first time while you're playing it. So unironically, I would encourage not spoiling yourself and not listening to any of the music before. Anyways, another one of the big reveals from this is that they've been planning a new project. Without further ado, please enjoy this preview video. Alright, Paimon's off the screen. Oh. Don't capital D Colin. Who the fuck likes Paimon? Yeah, it looks really fucking good, but... yeah, that's very loud. It looks really good. It's probably not gonna come out for like fucking 10 years, honestly. It's also... I'm gonna have to be real with you guys, alright? I don't think it's gonna be good. I hope I'm proven wrong, and that this ends up being an Arcane thing, where like they actually put in fucking effort, write a good story, shit like that, right? Like I hope so, obviously, but don't expect it to be good, because like the main goal of this anime is going to be getting you to play Genshin. It is a glorified publicity. Like, I very much don't expect it to be very good. And it's nice to be optimistic, but at the very least, brace yourself for the possibility of it not being good at all. Arcane is not a thing that happens often. It is not often that shows that are meant to, or that originate from like the universe of a video game, or of a game in general, end up actually being good shows. Anyways, all of this to say, just don't set your expectations too high. I don't know why they're holding hands like that, but this is probably 500 years ago, right? Like, I doubt this would be a sequel, so that would mean that it would, and in the current timeline, they wouldn't be in the same place, so it has to be a prequel. So maybe we'd actually get to see firsthand Aether just fucking vibing. It has absolutely nothing to do with the story. This is just a technical demo of the visuals. Oh, well, that would suck. If this is supposed to be a demo, why the fuck did they make the characters look so awkward? Like, this is not a natural pose, man. This looks weird. We're back to Mike Wazowski, chat. We're back to Mike Wazowski. Yeah, it's uncanny because it feels too different from the background. Maybe it's the kind of stuff you get used to, but very cool. So, that's it for the live stream for 3.1. The patch is coming out on the 28th, I believe, in 12 days. Hopefully it will be pretty fun. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward specifically to Cyno. I don't think he's going to be that good, but I think he's going to be fun. So, it is what it is. Cyno's pre-release will be coming out the day after this video, or the first part of the pre-release will be coming out the day after this video, and the second part will be coming the day after that one. So, Nilou pre-release will have to wait until after the patch drops, because I want to get information on Nahida from leaks before going into Nilou's pre-release. But yeah, so thank you for watching, YouTube, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Imagine not watching it live, kind of L.